And so I'm so happy to have these conversations because I believe we can glean from each other and that it's a conversation that needs to be represented because the world is going crazy. And all the Lord's saying now is don't forget the gift of the Sabbath, unplug, declutter, and come and just rest in me and find peace. That's what I want to bring to the discussion as we do a deep dive into the Sabbath.
I really like how you opened that up because the first thing that came to mind was Jesus saying, I'm Lord of the Sabbath. And that connection between the soul, the spirit, and the body. There is a need for just rest, like the actual resting of our body, giving time for stillness, giving time for divine meditation, giving time to allow distractions to be negated in order to step into the abundance of life through the realms of the spirit. There's a reason why meditation is a doorway in, why creativity flows in a greater measure from stillness, and why our body can't continually function
Mm.
without physical rest, things that rejuvenate and recharge. Some things that we need in the physical are pictures of what we need in our souls that highlight what we need in our spirits. Part of what I love when I think about Jesus revealing himself as the Lord over divine rest is the restoration of our oneness with God through him. That he became the place of rest. He became the Prince of Peace for us to enter into that place of continued habitation where we rest in the realization of the finished work of God through Christ Jesus. For me, when I think of the Lord of the Sabbath, the first thing that resonates in my heart is the realization of the finish, to come into that place where resting doesn't mean always not doing something, but I do it
Mhm.
from a place of internal oneness. So it doesn't become a performance and an act, it becomes
Mhm.
the flow of continued union and fellowship. What I love is also how it connects to Genesis 1 and 2, where we have this conversation of God creating from a certain beginning, the beginning that captures in Genesis around the reframing of the earth as we are currently experiencing it, is that after the 6 days, he rested
Mhm.
on the seventh day. Just to highlight, I don't believe he's referring to like physical sun days. No. Like
Yeah.
there is this spiritual attachment to the place of perfection where he comes to rest in the perfection that he created. And on that seventh day is where we have that fellowship of continued rest. When I think about the Sabbath, the first landing place for me is the place of fellowship from perfection. That requires renewing our mind to our identity, to the perfection we now operate from because of the one who gives us our new definition, who is Christ. And from that place, we celebrate what he's finished to bring it forth into creation. For that reality to settle in us, we need stillness because there's so much distractions that are in our world that are trying to cloud out that reality from settling into the deep places in our hearts. Having those moments, those opportunities to just be, to allow being to be enough and just to come into that inward fellowship, to allow our Father to come in, how Genesis describes as the cool of the day, to be with us, allowing that to be enough. As someone who, again, I often like to say, I like crossing things off lists. That sometimes that satisfaction of getting something completed overrides this necessity of the centrality of just being in fellowship. Fellowship is the primary thing on that list and where everything else will begin to flow. And I love how Jesus, when he's interacting with the disciples, why aren't they doing this on the Sabbath? Why are you not observing these laws that we've put in place that, yes, were
Yeah.
inspired, but they were going to be hindrances into what God was establishing through Christ in the law of grace and the law of the Spirit. And Jesus was like, why would they need to? They're with me. They're fellowshipping
Right.
with me. They're feasting with life itself. I am the Lord of the Sabbath. I am the one that if you feast with me, You'll enter rest. Those are some of the thoughts that are rummaging in my heart as I think about this concept of entering into a Sabbath rest.
I love that. As you were sharing, I love to create these visuals in my mind of what it looked like when he says, I am the law of the Sabbath. I'm the law. Sometimes, if there's these written rules, we're to abide by the written rules, and it overrides what the supreme being is saying about that. As I take the Sabbath, I had this beautiful experience yesterday. I'm resting for the last 3 Saturdays. I was not given permission to move. And when I did move to do something, it was restricted. And I was able to hear what the Lord was saying to me so clearly. And it was about prayer, it was about fellowship, it was about worship. It's about spending time with the people that you love.